Well, we wouldn't know about this if it wasn't for the Republican congressman from Florida, our good friend Matt Gaetz. Congressman, welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Grant.
So a lot to break down here, but let's start with the story that you uncovered. And you say they're covering it up, this situation in Niger. Can you explain to me what's going on here?
There was a coup in Niger. It'll surprise no one that we trained the coup leaders. And before that coup happened, you had Biden and Blinken claiming that Niger was going to be the centerpiece of their Africa strategy. We've sunk billions of dollars into this country. We have a $500 million base there. And the troops who are there, some of them are my constituents. And they've reached out to me to say, Congressman, because the government here changed, we no longer have permission to get food and clean water and medicine. And we've sent intelligence reports saying we need to retrograde and get out of here. And the State Department has concealed those reports. They've covered it up because Joe Biden and Tony Blinken would rather avoid their own embarrassment than do the right thing for our troops. They're having to plan whether or not they're going to evacuate through Ghana if, in fact, some Benghazi-style attack occurs. So I know Niger is not a country that people think about regularly, but think about those 1,100 troops who are over there wondering what's going to happen to them when they run out of medicine abandoned by Joe Biden.
Yeah, and so, look, we know it was under the Obama administration with an inept State Department run, of course, by Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden was right there as vice president. You think we're out of line by saying this could fall into another Benghazi situation? And then what do we do? I don't have any faith with this commander-in-chief to get our men and women out of harm's way if that were to happen.
It could be a Benghazi. It could also be a situation like at the military installation in Afghanistan. You see, if we retrograde our equipment soon enough, then it won't fall into the hands of ISIS or Boko Haram or some hostile entity, either government or non-government. But when we have to make these hasty decisions because we're unable to confront facts, that's when Americans really fall into grave harm. And the thing that boils my blood is that any responsible person would say the first thing, the most important thing is the safety of our troops. The most important thing is not whether or not Joe Biden and the Secretary of State Tony Blinken are embarrassed for burning billions of dollars in Niger that now won't result in a safer security apparatus in Africa or anywhere else.
Well, we know about the dead Marines in Afghanistan that lay at the feet now of the White House. Sadly, I don't want to see this happen in Niger. If that were to happen, it would be another travesty. All this, of course, connected to just absolute chaos. I mean, Matt Gaetz, what we're seeing now never would have happened under President Trump. I know we all say that, but we had peace basically around the world. It is a disaster. You guys are taking up this foreign aid bill, $95 billion. What do you make of it? Problems? You okay with it? Where do you stand?
Any Republican who votes to proceed onto this foreign aid bill is basically part of the invasion because you're surrendering the only leverage we had with Schumer and Biden to actually get meaningful changes on the border to stop the type of murders that we saw with Lake and Riley. Shame on anyone who is willing to care more about the eastern border of Ukraine than the southern border of the United States. I'm incredibly grateful that President Trump provided great clarity on this subject. He put out a Truth Social post today. I encourage everyone to read it. The fundamental premise is that Europe can end this war anytime they want to. President Trump's not against all lethal aid in every circumstance. Matter of fact, he was giving lethal aid that was actually saving lives and deterring invasion. The problem is the Biden administration has no way to define victory. When I asked senior Biden officials in armed services, are you going to fight this war until Crimea is repatriated? Their answer was yes. And that is problematic because it mires us in these forever conflicts without a discernible outcome. And I think that President Trump's leadership really presented the great opportunity for peace to flourish. That's what we're for. Peace, not war. We had it under President Trump because we were stronger and, frankly, because we were less predictable. People don't talk about this a lot, but I view President Trump's unpredictability as a bit of a strength because it keeps the dictators on their best behavior.
Absolutely. When you don't know what he is about to do, but you do know what he's capable of doing, then you're off of your game and you're afraid of what's to come. It keeps everybody in check. So we've got this situation now where I believe President Trump is correct that Europe could stop this thing if it wanted to right away. But we also have a battle going on inside the House of Representatives. I heard craziness of names being thrown around. Everybody called Republicans fighting with Republicans. What I don't understand, Congressman, is how does a Republican not agree with you on this when we simply want some form of border security? And I'm not even saying it needs to be money. It could literally be policy changes that we demand out of this. Change some laws to ensure that you can't just have this parole to release pipeline that he's got.
It, in fact, is the policy that matters more than the money. Trying to solve the problem at the border with money is kind of like trying to solve an exploding fire hydrant with buckets. You have to cut off the flow if you want the circumstances to get better. And it's the policy changes that will cut off the flow. And the great news is we don't have to think of some novel new policy widget to deploy to the border. It's the Trump policies. It's the very Trump policies that Joe Biden reveled in repealing that would actually restore order to the southern border.
So as you play this out now, Speaker Johnson holds some responsibility for all of this. There's this motion to vacate without privilege by Marjorie Taylor Greene. Massey said he may join. He wants to get 4 or 5 others to join. There's this idea of saying, all right, well, we'll get him to resign, come to an agreement of who would take his place before this all plays out. This is a disaster again. I think maybe just let Speaker Johnson limp on in to November and a new Congress. And if we don't get a lot out of Congress, to me, that's really not such a bad thing.
Well, let me offer a perspective that would bolster that viewpoint. We have a 1-seat majority right now. When I successfully executed a motion to vacate, we had a 4-seat majority, and I did all the wargaming and ran the traps, and I came on your program and many others and said we would not end up with a Democrat Speaker of the House no matter what. When you have a 1-seat majority, and this is uncomfortable to talk about, I believe there are 2 or 3 Republicans that could get bought off, paid off, to switch, to retire, to resign, to feign some sort of health problem so that Democrats would be in control. And by the way, if Democrats got control of the speakership, I believe they would refuse to seat President Trump even after a lawful, valid election for him for president of the United States. That's how big the stakes are. That's how much of an enemy to democracy House Democrats really have shown to be, trying to deem Trump an insurrectionist and not allow him to be a choice for the people of our country who want to return to the prosperity at home and the peace around the world that President Trump provided. So I believe there's grave danger in a motion to vacate, because I think there are not a lot, but there might be a small handful of Republicans who are financially compromisable or compromisable on other terms in order to get a Democrat Speaker of the House. That would be intolerable, and it might be the last election we have.
You know, I think you're right. And it took me a few days to come to this conclusion. I ran out every scenario and I said, you know what? The safest play here is, as I said, limp on in with Speaker Johnson. Maybe we force him to act a little tougher. But come January of next year, I am confident, and I'll give you the last word on this, Matt. I am confident we're going to have a very big majority, much bigger than 1 seat come January.
I think we'll have a bigger majority than we deserve, because President Trump is going to turn out a class of voter who have shown a willingness to go all the way down the ballot and vote for Republicans who they believe will have President Trump's back. So, yeah, I think there'll probably be a lot of Republicans who don't even deserve re-election who will get re-elected because President Trump will be such a force on the ballot. And then we've got to get a Republican Party in Congress that is a fighting force again. It's not enough to just keep surrendering to the foreign interests abroad and the special interests here at home. My hope is with President Trump as the clarion leader in the White House will stiffen the spines of some of these folks who've gone weak on us lately.
Hey, the bottom line is he stiffened the spine the last time around. As soon as he leaves office, everybody becomes amoebas again. It's like the craziest thing. So I think you're right. Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, it's always great to see you, buddy. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, my friend.